Before I get into episode 5 of Star Trek Picard, Stardust City Rag, I want to echo some of the sentiments of Robert Meyer Burnett. This series doesn't seem to place much value on humanoid life. In the previous episode, we had a stupid, contrived sword fight between a Romulan and Picard, and rather than do what Star Trek always does, which is to diffuse a violent situation, to focus on reaching a peaceful, higher-minded and diplomatic solution, one of the good guys, Elnor, who looks a lot like Elrond from Lord of the Rings / The Hobbit films, proceeds to decapitate the Romulan in a moment meant to shock the audience. In the opening of this 5th episode, we witness a brutal, graphic, callous, and extremely disturbing scene where the character of Icheb, played by a different actor for some reason, has his cybernetic implants removed. It's really awful, and then 7 of 9 comes in and has to mercy kill him. Then later in the episode, Agnes Jurati proceeds to brutally kill Bruce Maddox in a viciously painful manner. 7 of 9 also goes postal and kills an adversary of hers on the planet of Freecloud. Whatever happened to Star Trek's philosophy of aspiring to look beyond the darkest impulses of humanity? You know, seeing beyond our primitive, violent nature and not succumbing to vengeance? It seems, though, that even the nicest and most innocent characters can become cold-blooded killers, and it's very disturbing that this is the direction the show has gone in, because it's completely at odds with the peaceful, civilized, evolved, and more cerebral principles and values of Star Trek. What does it say about a franchise that once celebrated and valued all life, and whose message was benevolence, altruism, and non-aggression, but now Star Trek characters on a regular basis just succumb to the darkest aspects of themselves? Revenge, violence, murder. Modern Star Trek is finding reasons to justify murder and the cheapening of humanoid life, where it once strove to find reasons to value even the most despicable beings. Star Trek characters settled their ideas with words, not with swords and phasers. And grotesque depictions of violence and gore were out of the question on Star Trek. Star Trek tried to find the good in everyone and every species. Now it's become dystopian, dark, and cynical, and it's just very depressing. Also, why should I care about Raffi and her estranged son? She goes to see him on Freecloud, and it's this really stock standard trope of the parent who wasn't there for their child because of addiction and he doesn't want anything to do with her. I've seen this kind of scene countless times on other shows, mostly non-sci-fi shows. This is something straight out of a soap opera. A mother who wasn't there for her son coming back to him and trying to rekindle their relationship, to win back his trust, and him being very skeptical about her. I'm clean now. I know I wasn't there for you. No, you weren't there for me, Mom. You weren't there. I'm here now. But you weren't there. It sucks to be your son. Blah, blah. Cliched dialogue. Completely un-Star Trek type situation. I don't watch Star Trek for this kind of crap. If I wanted to see the depressing story of broken families and a drug addict mother trying to win back the trust of her son, I'd watch some tabloid talk show. This series is completely devoid of the hopeful and optimistic vision of Gene Roddenberry. The writing is so lazy because it's much easier to destroy things. Blow up planets and murder characters. It's a lot harder to take the moral high ground and stand for higher ideals, to create, build, and make an argument for a peaceful solution. So let's talk about episode 5. Now, at this point, before I watch every new episode of Star Trek Picard, I always find myself asking the question, what new dumb pseudoscience / tech idea will we be asked to swallow this week? The face-palming idea of fractal neuronic cloning, that an android brain can be cloned from a single positron, or that a single moment in time can be somehow magically recreated by forensic molecular reconstruction, a magic handheld device that basically rebuilds past events in holographic form. Or maybe Jurati will make yet another mistake, like she did last week when she said there's over 3 billion stars in the galaxy, which is true, but I think someone needs to tell the writers that it's actually closer to 300 billion stars. Or like how she claimed that B4 was an inferior copy of Data, but actually B4 was a prototype Soong android, and therefore Data and Lore were the copies. Also, how many swear words will there be in this episode? Any completely unnecessary F-bombs this week? What about exotic aliens speaking with Irish accents and saying things like cheeky feckers? Is that going to be a thing? Or how many times will Picard get railed on by some strong female character? The guy just keeps getting put in his place, whether by Irish Romulan Mrs. Doyle. Excuse me, wipe your shoes after you beam into this house. Your mucky footprints are all over that transporter pad. I'm not cleaning it. Will Raffi once again complain about everything Picard says and does? Oh, you want to go on a super secret unauthorized mission? Yes, I do. I want to find a member of the Coat Malat. Then I have to find Bruce Maddox so I can rescue Daj's sister from the Tal Shiar. Oh, you want to pick yourself up a nun? Yes, Raffi. What's the problem? Also, I want to bring Agnes with me on this mission. Oh, you want to bring Agnes here on your super secret mission? Yes. And I also want a cup of Earl Grey tea, hot. Oh, you want a cup of tea, JL? You want to have another cup of your favorite tea that you've been drinking for years? Raffi, will you stop calling me JL? The fans hate it. And will you stop questioning everything I say and do? Oh, you want me to stop calling you JL and constantly lecturing you? Where were you when the Romulans needed you, JL? There was no way to save them. Liar! I don't own all the starships of the Federation, you know. You didn't even try! That Meryl Streep lookalike wouldn't give me any ships. There was nothing I could do. You could have helped us, Picard. How? I didn't have any ships. Liar! Fuck off, Raffi! JL, just admit that every bad thing that's ever happened is your fault. No! No! Constant arguments, F-bombs, decapitations, murder and gory scenes, suggestions of brother-sister incest, shitty science, bastardization of the Federation, and a bleak dystopian outlook. Now that's the 90s Star Trek that I remember. So anyway, the crew of Rios' spaceship, which I know has a name, but I just can't remember it because the writers haven't mentioned it enough times. They travel to Free Cloud, some kind of futuristic, dingy Las Vegas. And when you're traveling to this planet, these interactive, holographic spam advertisements, they basically invade your ship. Now, that doesn't sound like a recipe for a potentially ridiculously dangerous situation or anything. Like, what if a pilot got freaked out by the visual obstruction and intrusion of such a hologram and crashed into the planet? Oh well, try not to overthink it too much. The bar they go into in Free Cloud is your predictable, stereotypical alien den of iniquity bar filled with dangerous outlaws. The kind of place you feel that you've seen many times in films like Star Wars. In fact, there's nothing original here at all. They have to go there to meet some woman who can get them to Bruce Maddox, and they use these ridiculous disguises. Anyway, long, boring story, less boring. They get Maddox. There's a subtle suggestion that 7 of 9 had a lesbian relationship with this woman, because I guess we live in current year, and later she kills this woman because of what she did to Icheb, which in my view is completely out of character with the 7 of 9 we know from Voyager. They get Maddox back to the ship, 7 leaves, she's some kind of vigilante with the Fenris Rangers, they keep order in the galaxy or whatever. She has a moment with Picard where she asks him, as a fellow former Borg, she asks if he felt that he fully regained his humanity after being liberated from the collective, and he says no, which in my view is just bizarre because we know that Picard said that he had completely recovered from his experience with the Borg. He admitted this in the episode The Drumhead.
Have you completely recovered from your experience with the Borg?
Yes, I have completely recovered.
He was only in the collective for a few days. 7 of 9 was a Borg for many years. And though it's certainly nice to see that 7 has become more human since Voyager got home, it's understandable why Picard would have recovered more thoroughly than she did. We've seen Picard in 4 subsequent seasons of TNG and 4 films since he escaped the Borg Collective, and I think we've seen no evidence that he hasn't fully regained his humanity. Now, you could argue that in Star Trek First Contact that he was driven by a strong quest for vengeance, but his humanity was always intact. In my view, this response by Picard seems like a contrived excuse to create another dark character moment for him. Another melancholic pain from the past, another cloud to hang over him. Now, as much as I do appreciate the attempt to create a shared bond between these two characters, I think it's unnecessary, and I think this admission is a bit of a step back for the character of Picard. Anyway, moving on. As I said earlier, Jurati kills Maddox. Also, after failing to reconcile with her son, Raffi comes back to the ship. The crew flies off to Romulan space where the Borg cube is so they can find Soji. The only positive that I can say about this episode is that Rios is becoming the only somewhat likable character, and at least Swindon, Spock and Soji weren't in this episode, so there was no pointless drawn-out Borg cube scene. Besides all of the problems that I've mentioned in this review and in my previous reviews, Star Trek Picard's fatal flaw is that I don't care about Picard's quest to save Soji. I don't even know anything about this woman. I don't know what or who he's really saving her from. What did the Tal Shiar even want with Soji? I know nothing about the Zhat Vash, and I'm not interested in knowing any more. And given how bleak and dystopian this vision of the future is, and how dour, broken, cynical, and antagonistic many of the characters are, this is not a fun universe to hang out in. Why should I be emotionally invested in this bleak and depressing world of relativistic morals and people who only care about themselves? Picard seems to be the only person who believes in anything, which is that it's very important that Soji be saved. And the issue is, we, the audience, have known that she's on the Borg cube for 5 episodes now. Picard has just literally found this out in this episode. So the audience has been way ahead of the main protagonist for half a season already. So what we've basically been watching up until this point is Picard figuring out what we've known for 5 episodes. And that has not been a very interesting ride. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more and please share this video if you liked it. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.